all uphill. It's a lot more challenging, and I really envy you that you take so much of it for granted, that you can just do all this very
These children are
easily.
so savvy, I'm telling you.
It's amazing.
It is.
Gives you access to a very much larger world than we had access
Filming
to.
now, Mr. Toon? Thank you.
However, we were probably more into books than you are. Anyway, my name is Joyce Lindenmuth. I've been president of the Bread Box since 2004, and I've been with the Bread Box since 2000. We are actively pursuing a new director for the Bread Box, but it has not, people aren't coming out of the woodwork to take the job. It's not a full-time job, it's a part-time job. It gets very busy in the fall when most of our food drives take place, because people are much more generous during the holiday season. They want to give, and they're remembering that they're giving to their families, and then when they're giving to their families, they remember that they want to give to somebody else. The South Hill Bread Box, and that's the name of the bread box, is the South Hill Bread Box, serves South Hill, Broadnax, La Crosse, Union Level, Palmer Springs. But we have to be very careful. We can only serve that area in Mecklenburg County. And some of South Hill now is not in Mecklenburg County, it's in Lunenburg County. Some of it is in, some of Broadnax is in Brunswick County. So we have to be very careful that we don't go into other counties, because we're chartered to only serve Mecklenburg County. So when people come in to register, we have to ask them what county they live in, because we don't always know. We try and do it by telephone number, but now so many people have cell phones that the exchange doesn't tell you where they live. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a little while. There is a bread box that there is a food pantry that opened a year ago in Bracy, Virginia. We used to also serve Bracy. They are open 1 day a month. We're open 4 days a month. 4 days a month. There is a food pantry in Chase City. There's one in Boynton. And we have to be very careful that when people people live in Palmer Springs tell us they live in Boynton, but downtown Boynton we can't serve, so we have to, again, separate them out by their phone exchange. In general, we look them up on maps and that kind of thing.
Do you send them to another food pantry?
Yes,
then?
we do.
Okay, good.
We generally, what we'll do is, if they've come all the way to the bread box from wherever they were, we will give them what we call an emergency basket. It'll be one bag of food that'll get them through if they don't have any food on their shelves, and then they'll go we'll give them the name of another pantry. There's one in Lawrenceville, and I think there's one in Kenbridge, but I'm not sure. They all have stricter guidelines than we do. The bread box started, I think it's kind of interesting. I'm a transplant. Obviously, I don't speak Southern. I wasn't born and raised in this area. From the north. And most of the people who serve the bread box are people who are transplants from other areas. The person who started the bread box had been in town for a year. She'd come from the north, and she needed something to do. She said she just wasn't doing, she was bored. She needed to be doing something meaningful with her life. So at the time, people were coming to churches, people who were hungry, were going to churches looking for food, and going to individual churches and looking for food and money. But there was no way to coordinate to keep the same person from going to all the churches, because you try and serve as many people as you can. And if one person is using up all the resources, then you don't have anything left for other people. And so they were going from church to church, and the churches asked that the food need be consolidated in one place. So she and Lou Allen, I don't know if you know anything about Lou Allen's Drapery Shop, which is next to Pierce's Cleaners in town on Pine Street. They started with Cleon Ross, who was the rector of the Episcopal Church in South Hill. He suggested they start a bread box, and he talked to other ministers in town, and they got behind the bread box. And they originally started out, she and Pat Jeppesen and Lou Allen went out and purchased food with their own money. With their own money. They hadn't gotten donations, very many donations yet. They would take orders from the few people that they were. They'd go to the grocery store and they'd buy their food order and then bring it back and give it to the people the next day. thing. So we started out very small. There was about 16 families a week, and they could come once every 6 months.
Goodness.
Let's see. The Bread Box was incorporated in 1995, and it became do you all know what a 501c3 is? No. 501c3 is a organization that is allowed to receive donations and gets a tax. We don't have to pay any tax on anything that we purchase, either to the state or the federal government. In the beginning, it was totally relied on referrals and word of mouth, and that's still true today. We rely on referrals and word of mouth. We don't operate through, we are not connected with any other agency. We are not connected with any church. We're totally unaffiliated except for one organization, which is called the Central Virginia Food Bank, which I'll talk to you in Richmond, which I'll talk about a little later. The purpose of the Bread Box originally was to be an emergency food bank, and we still are trying to maintain that. And it's open to all who are in need, and we take them at their word. Right now, what we require is that they have a picture ID. If they don't have a picture ID, we ask for some other form of identification, which might be their Social Security card or their military registration card. In some cases, it's a letter from Social Services. And a bill, and this is one of the things that's most important, that proves that they live where they live. Because a lot of people who have their driver's license when they move, don't change their address on their driver's license, even though they're legally required to do that. They don't do it. So we need to make sure that people live where they say they live.
What if they're homeless, living in their car?
If they're homeless, they can come to us and we'll give them food, but we'll refer them, we'll say, please go to Social Services and get a letter to say that you're homeless and you need some food. We totally rely on donations. We don't have any government donations.
Whatsoever, huh?
No, we have no grants, nothing.
Is that intentional, or is that?
It is intentional.
Okay, because when they get into the mix, there's more rules, or?
There's more reporting that's necessary.
Okay.
We're doing reporting now. We're an all-volunteer organization and would like to stay that way.
Gotcha.
I think there is a need for an organization that has a paid person to do it and would do it more thoroughly than we do it. But for right now, this is serving an immediate need. I don't think we're nearly serving the need that we should. There's a lot of, I'll go again, a lot of agencies in town who are serving need, and I'll talk about those in a little while also. The clients that we serve are only allowed to come one time every 3 months. And that doesn't sound like much. It isn't much as far as I'm concerned, but we have over 700 clients, 700 families that we serve on an annual basis. And we just do not have the funds, the time, the space, or the donations to serve that many people on a weekly basis.
Do you make it a requirement that they have already applied for food stamps?
No.
Okay, we watched a video where that was a requirement at that food bank, so that's good.
Right. All food banks have their own requirements, and we are probably going to tighten up on our requirements, and I'll explain that again a little bit later. Again, they have to have a picture ID and a proof of residence, and the bill has to have been within the last 2 months. And we expect them to bring that information every time they come. We feel that it's important that people have a responsibility. If they want to get food from us, we don't have a problem with giving them food, but we expect them to uphold their end of their responsibility to prove where they live and bring the necessary paperwork with them. We maintain a database. I maintain an Excel database on all the clients who we have. Most of the paperwork is done on a sheet of paper like this. It has a lot of information that's filled out with their name, address, how many people are in the family, what their source of income is. We're starting now to record how many people get food stamps and how much they get in food stamp money. And you have to be really, really, really poor to get food stamps. Really poor. I mean.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You have to be. I'm trying to remember what the numbers were. I should have brought them with me. But when we do the Christmas, I'll talk about that in a little while also, the Thanksgiving distribution, we use poverty guidelines. And the poverty guideline of 130%, we use poverty guidelines of 125% of poverty. And the The lowest number that we have is $13,000 a year, is what the income